And so there was no way to connect people online or no way to build events. So as soon as I had recovered, I knew that I wanted to build this. I started building it beforehand. And so about 2 years ago, I hacked it all together. By the time I completely healed, raised some money, and we've been, honestly, it's been nonstop for the last, since we did that initial product pre-release in November of last year on the closed beta. It has been nonstop growth for us and a huge demand, because obviously before coronavirus, people wanted to connect without having to travel across the world, and companies wanted to connect people without paying tons of money. Whatever it is, there's hundreds of reasons: accessibility, the environmental impact, whatever it is. There was already a ton of demand.
Yeah. So the environmental impact, this isn't something we talked about earlier, but how does that figure into your plans? What are you trying to achieve there, and like how are you offsetting the environmental impact of events?
So I mean, the main thing is, there's waste, there's travel, there's all the tons of things, but at the same time, I don't want to take too much of a shot on environment. Meeting in person is good, in my opinion. It's great, but kind of like how Zoom and meetings have kind of become the pre-event. It's like you can close a deal, you can do business on virtual video. We've learned that now. You don't need a meet but I mean, for more personal connections, maybe you want to get dinner with someone or go out, etc. And I think events are going to be the same for most of the stuff where you're just there to learn more, get content, make some new connections, and then you kind of that's what you do at events. You kind of make the initial connections with people, and then who you're going to go further with after that. Yeah. I think that's what people pay for. That's why people attend events, etc. I think that'll be brought online. I don't want to take too many shots. I mean, the main thing, our philosophy is our events an event on Hopin that's hosted on Hopin needs to be better than the physical experience, and that's what we want to sell. I mean, the environmental impact is a big win that comes with it, but nobody's going to do it if it's just for that reason.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. So about your recent success, I know you love all the organizers that host events on Hopin, but it'd be great to hear what some of the bigger events are that have been hosted on the platform in the past 4 months. So can you?
Yeah, there are a ton. I mean, I can use names. We got a lot of case studies approved recently. So we've had we've had the UN. I mean, one of the most exciting ones for us was the UN Global Summit. We had I think there was like 22,000 people that were registered for that event. Yeah. It was incredible. It was incredible to have a lot of the heads of state on the platform using it. Super cool. We've had P&G had their global marketing event, P&G Signal, which had great CEOs from across the world. But I don't want to only name the big events that we've had. There are a lot of boutique events that I had no idea about. We've had these trade fairs on the platform. So I think there was one of the most interesting ones for me was a VR trade fair event that happened once a year, and there was a lot of cool features at the event and things like that. But I mean, now at this stage, there are so many events on the platform. There are flagship events like TechCrunch Disrupt, which we implement a little bit more on top, or quite a bit more for TechCrunch on top to provide more value. But there are hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of events happening, month by month nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. So that UN event, just out of curiosity, did they have was it one big stage, or was it like one big stage and like a ton of breakout sessions and a lot of expo hall stuff? Did they use the platform pretty, every bit and piece of it?
Yeah, they used every bit and piece of the platform. There was a lot of features that we didn't have at the time. This was about 2 months ago. I mean, Joey, you've probably seen how quickly we implement features and how quickly we're moving. They didn't have multiple stages. They didn't have the design features that we could do to make. So the TechCrunch event is going to completely look like TechCrunch, as you know, with the fonts being changed to the TechCrunch font, the design being, the TechCrunch green and almost customizable. Everything is almost customizable. So they didn't have those sort of things. But the expo, the sessions, the stage. No, the only thing they didn't use was sessions. So they had a stage where they were streaming in these great speakers and conversating with the audience in the polls and the chat. They had the expo space where there were no live booths because at the time they had too many booths. I think they had, I think like close to 600.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they couldn't have everybody set up live in a booth at the time, and it was
Mm,
not something we supported.
mm.
We could support it now, and so they had that. They had really great as well a networking area where people were one-to-one networking, and I think there was over 12,000 meetings in that event that
Wow.
we saw recorded. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Well, cool. So one of the concepts that you really centered Hopin around is the virtual venue. And I personally hadn't really thought about things this way until, I had to. But I see how you're thinking about this now that I've used the platform. What exactly does that mean to you? And also, how is that different from, say, like Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams and what they're doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a huge difference, but I can start with why I keep talking about virtual venues. It's because it's our philosophy behind the Hopin is that, TechCrunch is hosting an event on Hopin and not, it's a TechCrunch Hopin event.
Right.
And what we mean by that is it's TechCrunch's design. It's the sessions that you set up. If you're running Disrupt on Hopin, we want it to be a completely different feel than if you ran for example, smaller webinar on Hopin or a smaller talk. So we want you to be able to customize things in and out like a real venue. A real venue, you're never going to say, you're never going to host two events in the same venue. If you want them to look different, you can completely make them look different. For example, I always give the analogy of renting out the Staples Center or the O2 Arena if you're in London. You could literally put a yoga mat in the middle of it and say, hey, we're running a massive yoga convention here. Or
Yeah.
you could have stage expo booths and say it is one of the world's biggest trade fairs, or you could run tons of concerts or a basketball game. And that's what we envision for the venue analogy, is that we want everything to be customizable, which you can see in Hopin today. We kind of allow everything to be turned on or turned off or switched on or designed or customizable if you're on our bigger plans. So the big goal for us is to match that physical venue and be the online venue where you can do whatever you want. And by doing that, we don't try and control the process for you guys. I know that you guys are using a different registration system than Hopin. We want to be as connectable as possible. Companies will have maybe a big CRM that they're using or tons of other things. We're trying to be as connectable, as integratable as possible, so that we're really just the venue. We get your users in, they have an amazing experience. If you want to run a networking convention at the same time via a mobile app, that's a great product that comes out that can do that. Great. We'll plug in with them perfectly.
Yep. And I've experienced that myself, right? It's like you guys basically, if, when we go into the convention center, some convention centers, they say, we do ticket sales, but if you want to use our ticket booth and put your registration people there, that's fine. And the experience has been the same for us. And, when I think about the stage section, we usually go in and we build out this huge stage and we add all this AV. We're still doing that. And Hopin's able to accommodate that, right? We can stream in an RTMP feed. We don't have to use, whatever web protocols that you guys have set up for video directly, which is, that's a real luxury when you're trying to take things to the absolute limits, so very cool. And
yeah, I didn't answer on the Zoom and how we're different from Zoom and Google Meet, but I guess that was like 50% of it. I think you said it better than us with the RTMP stream in. So we are very, we're a big platform, we're a big venue. So Zoom and are amazing for up to 50 people. It's fantastic when you want to get everyone on video. But if you're doing anything with sessions, so breaking people out or wanting an experience, I mean, even the way you if you attend an event that's hosted on Hopin, we're focused on the interaction. So you can see the chat immediately over here. I have to click the chat at the bottom to pop it up, and then I can see the messages that are coming up. In Hopin, they're always available, always there. So the networking area, if I see someone that I like, I can invite them to a video call and get in a call immediately in the event when it's happening. I can see who else is watching something with me. And so if you and I, Joey, are watching the same thing in 2-3 years and we haven't caught up, I can say, oh, Joey's in this room watching the same session as I am. Let me send him a message and jump on a call. So there's the expo space allows booth providers and people who are sponsoring events, if that's what you're setting up, they can do live demos of their product. They can invite people in there. You can have a schedule that's booked in so people are attracted to it. They can offer discounts. They can offer tons of things. So it's a much bigger, wider platform.
Yeah, yeah. It's self-evident when you use it, but I think a lot of people, they're just it's all this is so new that they just see the names and it's like, isn't it all just a video feed? The answer is no. So interest in Hopin has really taken off. How many events were you doing before COVID, and how many are you doing now?
So that's a great question. So we were only 80% or 75% finished on Hopin when COVID started. We were in a very, very selective private beta. We had a wait list that was growing 40% month on month due to the virality of our events. At that time, I think it was around 60 events a month, and we were being very careful. We did not want more and more people to be using the product. And so because we weren't finished yet. Now, coronavirus happened, and then we decided, hey, we're going to be a little bit more loose because if people only, oh, am I frozen?
Nope, you're good.
If people are only using, a webinar software, et cetera, they might at the end of, because I thought coronavirus would only last 2 months, silly me. So I thought that this would, we had an opportunity to give people, when everyone's looking for a platform to host their events, we were going to say, hey, look, virtual events don't suck. They're great. Come use our platform. And so that was why we pushed out. It was and when we did, even though we were selective, we still have a wait list till today because we just couldn't deal with it, the amount of people that we wanted to come on. But from when we pushed that out and we allowed people in, even though we were kind of setting the pace, we're now at, I think this month we had 10,000 events. Last month was like 5,000. The month before that, 2,500. So it's just, for us, it's been an unbelievable pace. And we're trying to, again, slow down the amount of people that we let in. Even though we want to, it's just that the fact that, with going this fast as a company and having this many events, we want to put attention and make sure everyone's having a good experience.
Well, that's super impressive. I mean, basically you guys turned into like the largest conference venue overnight, right? I can't imagine any one single venue doing that many events. So right now, how many events do you think are happening on Hopin?
Right now, at this moment, there's probably 30 to 40. And
are they all over the world, or?
Definitely so. I mean, the time zone now, 6 o'clock. Yeah, so 6 o'clock is usually when everyone's kind of on. Between 3 and 6 o'clock, where it's pretty active across the world.
That's peak Hopin time?
Yeah, I would say so. 2 to 6 maybe is more likely. 2 to 6 is more likely. So you get like this Europe, you get first Asia. Well, it depends on where. I shouldn't explain that because it's based on where I'm from.
Yeah. So, I'm sure you've had a lot of feature requests since this whole thing has happened. What's the top feature request that you've gotten from all the organizers that have flooded the platform?
Most of them have been implemented. Most of the ones that I can remember that are being really, really important. So there was a lot about integration. So we implemented something called the Magic Link, which you guys are using. Mm-hmm. So that allowed people to skip our registration. We didn't have that. That's why the company, we were only 75% done when coronavirus started. We had to implement it very quickly. But it's just so users can come in without having to create a Hopin account. So if you wanted to register people on techcrunch.com and then just have them funneled in directly into the event without creating a profile or anything like that, you'd be able to do that through the background. So that was a huge one. We've also had a big one was the expo space, which has been implemented. So sponsors wanted to be able to not only put a recorded video, but they just wanted more interactivity. That was the main thing that we got back. So we implemented interactions and live video. So now a sponsor who's in an expo booth, I mean, it's not always used for that. It could be used for different things depending on what the event is. But for typical event where you have a sponsor, they can have a live sponsor, a live person in that booth, taking questions, answering questions, bringing people on stage, giving them a demo, exactly like they would at a real event. And for TechCrunch's event, we're actually making significant improvements on this because we know how important the expo is. And maybe we can go through that a little bit later.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely would love to go through that. So, just a couple more questions before they do that, actually. So there's something that I've noticed, and this is kind of a little off topic, but I still want to, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So virtual events and social networking to me have a lot in common, right? People chat, they consume content, they meet new people. So do you see yourself as a competitor to any of these social networking platforms like Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram? And like, how does that, if you do, like, how does that work out down the road?
So I don't think we're competitors at all, and I think a lot of platforms. I mean, we had the opportunity because, I mean, we do collect profiles on the platform, but we only do that to improve the user engagement. So when TechCrunch, when you host the event, or if your sponsors want to know who attended their booth, you can give them this data quite accessibly if this is being approved for your event.
Right.
And so the idea is, people can network, people can interact if you have their first name, last name, and email. That's the only reason why we put it there. And a lot of people tell us about this opportunity we can do AI matchmaking after events, and because we have this and we don't want to go into the social network world, because then it doesn't become the organizer's event. And again, going back to that philosophy of the venue, like if you walk into a venue and that venue is going to force people to sit in a certain way, or you can't use it for 50% or 80% of the other events that you're planning to do because it's been pre-selected. So for us, it's more about, if we were going to do AI matchmaking, it would be for the organizer. It would literally tell the organizer, hey, do you want to match people like this? And like a suggestion, or we offer this feature. It would never be something where it would be left to the attendees after the event, because that would take the power away. Yep. So we definitely don't see ourselves as competitors because it's, we are not doing anything with the profiles after the event.
Yeah, I can just imagine all the ideas that you get in the VC meetings that you go to, and they get really enthusiastic and start drawing those dots. So I just wanted to see, what's going on out there. One other thing. So a lot of the platforms that I looked at have AR and VR features, and they also leverage avatars. What do you think about that approach?
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. I think there's many different types of events so the problem with AR VR is, so I hate knocking on anything. But I also, so I can tell you where it's good and I can tell you where it's bad. So just from what I'm seeing, I'm just completely unbiased. So Hopin is, or online event or virtual events like the one Hopin's doing. I mean, we're aiming to be, as interactive and as great as possible. But there's like I said, for business events, for anything content driven, anything sponsorship, like anything more about networking for business sense and not about creating deep personal connections, like a yoga retreat or something like that.
Yep.
I think Hopin is better than physical or hosting an event with Hopin. So I think it's 20% better and 20% worse. Now, when it comes to AR and VR, I don't think for business or for something where you're trying to maximize your efficiency and time efficiency, I want to meet as many people as I can. I want to see as many products as I can. I want to listen to some great speakers. Like it's all compressed. Whereas AR and VR events, especially if they're like based around a gaming community or something where you're literally, I'm here to build deep connections with some people. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to work very well. So if someone was going to run a yoga event, today they're running them on Hopin via video or on Zoom via video. I do think potentially they would work better on AR or VR if they get to that. I don't know how it would work, like sitting, or maybe yoga is not the best example, but some sort of poker event. I'm not sure, something where you read people's faces or I could imagine that AR and VR events are that experiential, let's say, thing. I think it's going to be fantastic over there. I think for business events, and we've seen that, like, those events, there's a lot of platforms that like older platforms that didn't work a long time ago, where you like land in and it kind of like looks like an expo floor and you have to like pull your mouse down to open a door. And I mean, I don't think it's very efficient. And so that's why I think I think it won't work as well for business or for community or for something that's not like an experiential event.
Right. So I'm going to ask this question anyway, although you seem to have answered it already. But do you see yourself integrating AR and VR or avatars into your platform anytime?
I mean, one thing is we're a product-driven company. Over 60% of the company or 70% of the company now is still engineering and product, and it will stay that way. Like it's actually the number one principle that I have about running this company is I want it to be more than 50% product and engineering.
Yep.
We are super excited about AR and VR. And some of our engineers like tweet about it every day, but as they do about cryptocurrency, as engineers do. There's been some cool ideas, but for the next year at least, we are a year or year and a half at least, we're going to be completely focused on creating the absolute best online event experience and then hybrid event experience. So making sure people physically and online, if there is a hybrid event, it's 10 times better than just a physical event. That's our goal. And after that, we're super, I mean, there's a whole world out there. But like I said, I think those are going to be for like concerts and yoga. Like that's where I think AR and VR is going to do best.
Yep. Well, so let's just talk about Disrupt. What you're doing for Disrupt a little bit. Why don't we just dive in? Show a little bit about what. Can you show us what you built there so far?
Okay. Yeah, I can. So I can't show too much, but I can show a little bit. So you can see over here, this is the expo space for the for this event. So TechCrunch's event will have TechCrunch's chat, TechCrunch's green, as we explained, all that sort of stuff. The design is still due to change in some aspects, but one of the key things you can see is how sponsorships are displayed and how how companies are displayed at the event. So you'll be able to see companies like this and be able to click in, experience which ones are live, which ones are not, and you'd also be able to see products that are happening. And so inside the booth, you will see you'll be able to have a live conversation with people on video. This is the expo space, as I explained. And people will be able to give giveaways. And another feature that we've recently added for the TechCrunch event is multiple stages. So if you click on stage, usually we have one. For TechCrunch, there will be two, obviously with typical of TechCrunch. So you'll be able to see two different events, two different stages, whichever one you wanted to attend or view at the same time, you'd be able to. And finally, there's actually a ton of more features, but I'm naming some of the more ones that I think are more interesting. Another thing that we're adding for TechCrunch, and we've thought about this a lot. So reactions are something that talked about all the time. I want to be able to throw tomatoes on people if they're having a bad talk. And we decided to stay very unopinionated with the platform. We didn't want to have emoticons or emojis or reactions to talks be significant. So what we've implemented is a simple chat feature or clap feature. So you can only clap at the event. We don't allow the boos and whistles, unfortunately. And the reason we do that is it's more unopinionated and that's what the speakers want to see. The more reactions there are. So the chat is where you complain if there's a complaint about the speaker. So it's productive and people can see your name. That's the main thing about it. So because people tend to be a little bit more anonymous when they're if they or tend to be a little bit nicer if they know their name is attached to it. So the reactions, you'll be able to see who else is clapping with you at the same time. So if there's something, a talk that's happening that's amazing at TechCrunch, you'll be able to see the claps. And a good thing about this is it adds over time. So we're doing this completely different from anyone else, how they've done it before. We want the claps over time to show up so that you can tell the speakers basically how engaged people were during their segments. You'd be able to tell sponsors how sponsors will be able to even see it themselves, but you'd be able to see across the board how engaged people are at the end of the event in different areas and give that feedback if you wanted to people in the events. So those are just a few of the exciting features that we've set up, but there's a ton more. And I know that we at TechCrunch, we've done some really cool work with another cool company as being part of the venue. You guys have a great networking feature that you guys are using another software for it, and we're connecting it together. We've been working with them, that we're super excited about, because again, being part of the venue, we want to be able to integrate in a lot of places, and I think it's going to make the networking even more powerful.
Yeah. So on the networking front, you guys have networking built into Hopin. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? I've done it, but I think it's interesting to hear it from you.
So there's two ways today of how it works. The first is we call it it's literally, it depends on the organizer how they've set it up, but it's very much random networking.
Yeah.
So it's very much hallway conversations. You jump into the networking area, you click I'm ready to network, essentially, or whatever wording that TechCrunch is attached to it, and you click that, and it'll match you up with someone based on the segmentation that TechCrunch has added you to. So for example, if I can give an example of a recruitment event, if the organizer has said, okay, I want recruiters to only meet students or to meet job seekers, then recruiters will only meet job seekers. They won't meet other recruiters. And so at the event, you'll be meeting other people. Maybe TechCrunch has made it that anyone can meet anyone. I don't know what the position is there, but you'll be meeting other people inside the event, and you can meet them for timed conversations. So if it's a 3-minute, 4-minute, 5 conversation. So the idea behind that is that the biggest problem I had with events, and a lot of people have with events, again, there doesn't have to be a timer. It can be unlimited. But for a lot of events, they use it because we've all experienced those awkward conversations in an event where maybe you don't know how to get out of it.
Yep.
And so if you give someone 3 to 5 minutes to speak, if it's a bad conversation, you're like, there's only a minute left, no problem. And we've literally seen that feedback from everyone. The networking feature is great. And if it's a great conversation, you're going to follow up anyway. So either way, it's a big win. So the networking feature is great, and we see tons of meetings in there, and people really love it. So
what do you guys really call it? I know what you guys you have a pretty funny name for it. I think it's fine to say it.
Chat roulette inside the event.
Yes. So I think it's great. You never know what you're going to get. What we've done is we have limited it to 3 minutes. When we all use the platform, we tested it. We've been, of course, dogfooding on it. And we also did an event with our Startup Alley companies. And 5 minutes is too long. If you're in a bad meeting, 5 minutes is too long. 3 minutes is fine. And you can always extend the meeting too. You can add a minute or whatever to it. But if it's 5 minutes and you're like, don't know what to do with those last 2 minutes, and you're like, I don't know what to do, right? That's so we think 3 minutes with the option to extend is sort of the best. And then you're right, we also have Crunch Match. So we have 2 ways of networking. But what you were saying is there's 2 ways to set it up on Hopin, right? We can either let anybody meet anybody, or we can tag you, or you can tag yourself with your interest, and we can say only the AI people will meet the AI people. Only the people that are interested in the Disrupt main stage will meet the Disrupt main stage people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the third way is, if in the event you wanted to invite someone to a video call, you can always do that from the chat.
Right. So, and this is just a real quick question. Like, people show up in the sidebar, the list of people. How does that work?
Yeah. So you, in the event, you'll be able to see a list of people. By the time the TechCrunch event happened, now we're segmenting for presence. So you'll be able to know who else is watching something with you. So the people tab will show. So if you're watching the Crunch stage versus another stage, you'll be able to see exactly who's in that stage with you watching that talk or whatever it is that you're watching. And if you're in a particular session, if you're in the expo booth, another feature I should mention. So we are really focused on improving the expo. Even though the expo is doing great at the moment, we just want it to be the absolute best feature possible for both the organizer and the people that are vendors in the expo or setting up a booth.
Yep.
And so what we've noticed in real life events was, currently today, Hopin is kind of anonymous. If someone walks into your booth, you don't know who they are until after the event, if the organizer shares that with you. So you just be sitting there kind of like, even if there's 90 people watching, you'll see there's 90 people watching, you'll be interacting, you'll see who wants to jump on a call with you because they can request for calls and all that sort of stuff. So when you're doing the demo, the only thing with that is, in real life, if someone, if someone's walking by your booth, you kind of drag them in. It's like an ever so slight, like you look at each other and you kind of pull them into the conversation. And so
Yeah.
we wanted to replicate that in real life, because it's very rare. Like, people are very transient, and it's kind of better for the attendee, but worse for the person in the booth. So now we're setting up a feature that to improve that, and kind of leaning more to the booth provider. So when an attendee attends your booth now, it's kind of like a door ring when you walk into a shop. It says like, Johnny has entered, or Johnny
Yeah.
Boufarhat has entered. And so now the person who has the booth can kind of go, hey, Johnny, like, so even if they're in the middle of presenting, they can say, hey, Johnny, thanks for joining us, and like kind of drag me in, make me feel
Yeah.
like a little bit more engaged, like I need to be here now.
Yeah.
And so it's a really, and we've been testing it behind a wall. And like, we already had really happy people that would use those booths, but now it's just like on another level.
Great. So along those lines, like, the platform for us is going to be big, right? Like, what else can the sponsors and exhibitors, like our Startup Alley folks, what can they do to get people to come to their booths? Like, the bell rings when somebody walks in. What else? How else can they drive awareness of themselves around the platform?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. We'd recommend, a lot of. It's like a real event. People like want to see the free chocolate or the free whatever you do,
Yeah.
especially if you're Startup Alley. So offering some freebies, letting people know on Twitter or on the event that, hey, we're offering 20% off this or 10% off that. Something that's only equivalent to the event, just like in real life. If I've walked past 100 conventions where I've seen a massive company like Facebook or anything that set up their booth, and if they're not offering a discount, I know I can go home and just watch or get the same thing that they're offering. So if I wasn't particularly looking for them at the convention I'm not going to spend time with them. So what usually drags most of us in is that oh, they're giving away 10%, or I get to have a live demo with someone who's going to go through it with me. I don't have to set up a meeting 2 weeks in advance. There's someone there who can jump in a call with me while I'm at the event.
Mm-hmm.
And so, freebies, free t-shirts, whatever it is, for the first 4 people in our booth, the last 2, whatever it is in terms of free, works very, very well, or discounting something, offering something, basically. Offerings are great. Have really good content set up. So if you're maybe a new feature, or I don't know what, I'm assuming that it's a startup that has features, etc. Maybe setting up a time. So, hey, from 3 to 6 o'clock, we're going to be doing, or from 3 to 4 p.m., we're going to be showing off our newest feature for live people inside the event. So the content's really important when someone's presenting, and try and be live as often as possible. That's the main thing, because the recorded videos do well, but the live videos do, when it's a live person, it does a lot better.
That's great to know. That's super helpful. Well, yeah, that's really, all those things are awesome. Thanks for that. So we got 20 minutes left, and there are a few questions. So I do want to hear one thing before I'm going to sort of truncate my questions a little bit, but you talked about a hybrid event. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your push into hybrid events? That's, next year we think that's going to be the hybrid event year, right? So what does that mean?
Yeah. Oh, we want to take this to the next level. We're not going to just, events today, or people say that events have already been hybrid for the last 4 years because of the mobile apps. A lot of people have mobile apps when they go to these bigger events. So I know you guys for Disrupt had a mobile app for the events. Right. We want to take it one step further and really, really far, to that the online, because for the organizer, you want as many people as you can. As many people as you can fit, but a venue, if in physical locations, are limited. So we thought about it as like, and operations are incredibly difficult and all that sort of stuff to set it up. So if you could have 2 events, one of them is in the physical space and you had this online layer on top, for your sponsors, it's even better, or the Startup Alley, it's even better, because they're getting double the exposure. They're having the physical exposure and then they have the online exposure. But how do we link that? So we've thought about, if we are setting up a mobile app, which it's very likely that we will for the hybrid, it's going to be unbelievably powerful, to the point where the event that's hosted on Hopin, so the TechCrunch Online event, for example, all the streams that are happening at the physical event are being RTMP streamed into the same stage. So the Crunch stage to the Crunch, and everything's being pushed to the same stage. Now the sessions, the same thing. You can push a session from the physical, or you can have it online only, whatever it is, so that people can watch and interact with that. The key thing is the chat and the polls. Rather than people interacting with one thing in person, one thing online, they're all linked on the mobile app. So if I'm in person and I'm sitting there and voting on something, or setting up or chatting, instead of like being on Twitter the whole time when I'm at the physical event, I'm chatting with other people and we're sharing it together in the event. And then we're also, so the online and the physical are totally linked. And that way you can see the expo while you're there. If I want to call, if I want to see a bigger amount of people, so I'll be able to clearly see who's at the event with me or who's online. But if there's someone that I want to meet that's attending online and I'm at the event, but I really wanted to meet that online person, I'll be able to see that from the mobile app and invite them to a video call and take the video call directly from the event. And so we want to have the most powerful physical event, hybrid event platform when we do it.
Sounds pretty magical. It's just kind of like, you know, when we started this journey, we were like, how do we do this? We're going to do a hybrid event, and then, you know, it's so complex. So it's, and we thought about all the things that you're talking about, and we just didn't, you know, the way forward was not clear at that moment in time. So I think that's pretty exciting stuff. Well, thank you. So let's flip over to the questions from the folks that are here. We've got a few of those. So I think we went over this, but just really quickly, within a booth in Hopin, what are some of the best practices? Staffing in the booth, when should we run videos versus be present and live, and any engagement ideas? So I think you went over that pretty well, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would say, like I said, discounts, booths, discounts, giveaways, offering something is really important. When staffing the booth, I'd recommend that you do time slots and you advertise those time slots. So treat the booth as like, have someone there to answer people on chat, because people are going to be sending in messages. Mm-hmm. So when people message you in the booth, you don't need to always have someone there. I mean, TechCrunch is a longer event, so you can't, I mean, you could technically have someone live the whole time, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend pushing people to send a chat message when you're not live, because then you could follow up with them anyways from the chat and say, hey, let me arrange that one-to-one demo. And setting up maybe 2 to 3 hour or 1 hour, or every 3 hours, setting up a, hey, we're going to do a 45-minute live demo, you know, because that attracts people. I mean, that's the whole reason why the event platform, why Hopin works rather than Slack, etc., is that the concurrency. You want everyone there at the same time. So if you're kind of there the whole time, you'll be stuck with lower viewership and less engaging. But so what I would say is hey, these are our set demo times. So 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, for example, or something like that. Or every hour, maybe we're gonna be back every hour for a demo, whatever it is. And so that way people know when to be there, when not to be there, and they don't just think, hey, they're going to be there the whole time anyway. So you kind of build that demand. So that's something I would say is a good idea.
Perfect. So another one, is there a Q&A feature in the main stage module for audience interaction?
So today the Q&A comes via the chat. So most of the Q&A comes via the chat. People can ask questions in the chat and answers. We've thought a lot about a Q&A feature. It's like one of the ones that we were like about to do it, and then we said, I don't think we need to do it. I'd love to know more. I mean, a lot of platforms do it, and so I know even I don't know if Zoom does it, but I know a few other platforms do it. But we've found that so just some of the data. I mean, we might do it still, but we would just want to do it in a different way, because a lot of the data is showing that people do end up using the chat, and that kind of gets forgotten, the questions, the Q&A. We've seen it in some other webinar tools, but maybe we will, maybe.
Yep. So another one, so your platform is pretty new. Has it been tested at scale with high traffic volume? And
yes.
Then Do you have some data on previous event sizes? So
Yeah. So the biggest we've had via bots was 180,000, which is like basically bots just coming in and smashing our
ugh,
system. Yeah.
ugh.
But the most we've had in people, real people, is about 30K.
Hmm.
And that was, I mean, our platform handled it well. But again, to point out, we are a young platform, and that's why we haven't let everyone in the wait list,
Mhm.
because it's another reason for us is just making sure everyone has a good experience. And that also means making sure we never have any mistakes, because it's one thing if you invite someone for a meeting and Zoom breaks down for 30 minutes and you can go use whatever else. It's another thing if someone has planned an event for 3 months and Hopin goes down for 10 minutes during the event. So
Yeah,
we're really trying to take zero risk.
right. And we appreciate that. So another one, for pitches during TC Disrupt, will Google Slides work or just PDF? Um, I think you guys are doing Google Slides, right?
We're doing Google Slides.
Yeah.
We're doing Google Slides.
Can you
I
do
saw
PDFs too, or is it just Google Slides?
you can, no, we're only doing Google Slides.
Yeah.
We debated it actually for TechCrunch. We said, are we going to do PDF or Google Slides? And we chose Google Slides.
Well, I mean, you can screen share, right? At the end of the day, that's the real. It's like you can always just say, "Here it is."
Mm.
So
I saw Katya put a message. I just quickly wanted to answer it because she's mentioning something in
yeah,
the chat. So yes, that is actually for TechCrunch actually came to us with that requirement, and we've implemented it for them. So by the time the event Katya is going live, you'll be able to choose between which one.
yeah,
As the booth owner, you can switch between YouTube or live video.
yeah, yes. We're excited about that feature. Um, and then let's see. What about for the little event organizers like me? I think it's get your. Are you going to roll it out across the whole platform?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the stuff you're doing for us isn't just for us, right? Like,
I would say 40% is.
ah, thank you. So, do we get analytics on our booth views to evaluate after the event? Yes, is the answer. We have all of our T's and C's set up for that. Another one I think you're probably not going to be inclined to answer, but how long for the app?
Not inclined to answer, apologies, but we're going to be quite a while. I would say it's something that right now we're just in talks about how we're going to do it and who's doing it. We've expanded we're like 100-person team really quickly. So I think we need a month. In 2 months, I'll be able to give you a date.
Yeah, great. And then any sponsor success stories on Hopin? I'd love to hear these too.
Yeah, we've had tons, and so we had one sponsor. I think I don't know if I should. I never got approval to say the name. I never asked, so I don't think I can. But one sponsor, I can remember that conversation. And I have a lot of conversations from organizers talking about their sponsors, but particular one, they said, so they had a physical event that happened in San Francisco every year, similar to TechCrunch. And then the organizer moved the event online. It was about at the start of the coronavirus, the second month. And so the organizer the sponsor had been in both events. They had 3 leads generated in their physical event when they sponsored it last time. 3 proper leads, let's just say. And at the Hopin event, they had 26. And so for them, it was unbelievable return on investment. And we talked with them about it. It's a big company as well, so it wasn't just like a new startup or anything. It was a tech event of some type. I forgot what type. I think it was AI, but it was a bigger company in that space, and they had a ton. And so it really comes to how much you bang your own drum. You can't only leave it to the organizers itself. It's also about Twitter. It's about building hype. It's about giving giveaways. It's content. But you will get people in your booth. We offer a better way for you to get those people driven in. And I think with the new features we're implementing for TechCrunch's event, which is the like giving you that notification when someone comes in, it's going to be even more powerful and more driven.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next one. So this one's for me. So when TechCrunch starts in-person events again, how will Hopin and services like this fit into your strategy? So for us, there are a few different ways that we're going to approach events from an online perspective. One, we're going to use virtual events or online events to reach geographies and that we weren't able to reach before. So like if there's an emerging tech ecosystem where, sending our editorial staff and our event organizing staff into that region, because of time constraints or whatever, we just can't do it. Next year we will do that, right? So we'll have meetups and we'll have pitch offs and things like that in places where we couldn't do them before. And then another thing that we'll be able to do, we will take a hybrid event approach. From my experience, the amount of information and the data and all of that other sort of stuff that happens on the platform, it's so critical. It helps us learn how to get better. It helps us make better connections between our attendees. We're not going to leave that behind. It's just not going to happen. So I think physical events and in-person events will come back for TechCrunch, but everything will have this layer on it. And we'll also have a virtual event strategy in addition to our in-person event strategy. So it's really just expand our toolkit and allow us to do more. That's really how this is going to affect us next year. So how have you seen, what do you know about other event organizers, Johnny? How are they approaching this going forward?
So I'd group them into two buckets. So you have event organizers of companies that 50+% of their revenue is events. Let's call. Mm-hmm. So like event companies, like most of their revenue comes from events, and they are thinking about a hybrid approach from a lot more. What does the world look like with physical events with a online layer on top? Whereas you have, let's say, companies where events is part of their marketing strategy or recruitment strategy. So like a company like a big corporate where their revenue doesn't come from events, but they host a lot of events for other reasons. Most of them are only thinking about online. A lot of them saying that we may not do physical events anymore because it's a lot more accessible. And if your end goal is only to collect leads, like a lot of the corporates are, they just stick with that.
Right. It's a fabulous tool for lead generation. I couldn't agree more. So here's another one. How are you scaling the video in your sessions format? What are the limits to scale there?
How are we scaling the video in our sessions format? So right now, each session can handle up to 3,000 viewers, depending on how many speakers there are. So let's just assume average around 1,000 for a session. So if you can have 100 sessions and each of them can have 1,000 people watching. So that's generally how it works today. We're going to be removing those limits. We're doing some cool stuff in-house technology-wise on the video end to make that even more scalable.
So where would you imagine that scale ending up? You don't have to, you can, if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But if you could give us kind of a range of like how big those sessions, you would imagine those sessions being.
I mean, they'll I don't want to say unlimited, but like to whatever the event can fit. So right now the stage can have as many people as the event can kind of fit in it. But the sessions have that limit, and we would want it to be the same, that everywhere kind of has kind of like no limit just based on how many people are in the event.
Yep. Here's another one, and I can answer this or you can, it's up to you. So how will individual TC Startup Alley companies be indexed? Do we provide tags, categories? How are we found? You want me to take that one, or do you want to?
I think it'd be better if you take it, Joey.
Yeah, so we have TC Top Picks, and there are a series of categories there. When you register, you'll choose one of those. We'll pass that category off to Hopin, and that category will show up. If you saw the expo hall, there was the cloud tag, or the tag cloud. And when somebody clicks on one of the labels in that cloud tag, they'll be able to see all of the Startup Alley companies, as well as our sponsors. that have categorized themselves or affiliated themselves with that piece. And so that's one way you're going to be found. And then there are other ways, just from a content perspective, that we're going to make sure you're found. Some things will be listed in the agenda. We'll drive to category networking from our analyst desk. So we'll have time set aside to say, hey, content's done. Go to the expo hall. Spend an hour in the expo hall looking at the AI companies. And so that's another way that you're going to be found. And then we'll also use what's called the pin chat feature in Hopin, and we'll make announcements and drive to various categories, based on who is attending their booth at that point in time. So there's a lot of different ways we're going to drive attention to Startup Alley companies. And yes, you will be tagged through categories. So here's another one, and I've thought about this, but I've never asked the question because it just didn't occur to me. But is there an integration with Slido for Q&A in Hopin?
Not out of the box, but if someone wanted to, we've seen it. So you can pin chat messages in Hopin, in an expo, in a session. So it's not out of the box, but at the moment we've seen a lot of people integrate it very well, where they'll just basically put a link, they'll pin it to the chat, kind of like what you guys have done here.
Yeah.
And they'll pin, even though there is a Q&A feature in Zoom, Slido is pretty cool. So in Hopin you can pin it, so it's like very available. So we've seen it before in an event where it's like, ask your questions on Slido link, and it's pinned to the top of the chat. So even if tons of messages come through, and you could do that in your expo booth as well, or in a session, wherever you could add that link anywhere.
Yep. So we've only got 2 more minutes, and we need to wrap up. And there's some questions that we haven't been able to get around to. So let's see. Let's see if there's one more. Yeah. So this is a pretty interesting one. Can the organizer capture video in a session and republish in VOD format?
All the recorded videos in the sessions belong to the organizer. So you'd have to speak with TechCrunch.
So the answer is yes from the TechCrunch side. Yep. So cool. Well, we're at time. I appreciate everybody joining us today. The questions were great, and Johnny, you were great. And we look forward to, we think this is going to be a great experience for everybody that comes to TechCrunch Disrupt. So thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Take care. Have a good one.
You too, Johnny. Thanks. Bye.